Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to explore the unrealistic standards for women from a man perspective. We'll go over physical appearance, emotions, self-esteem, psychological trauma, the idea of a perfect woman in the dating market, and what you're willing to pay for. If any of that sounds interesting, stick around. Generally speaking, I think both men and women should have high standards for the people they date because it shows that you value certain qualities in your partner. Yet, I believe that we're in an epidemic of men with very low standards who's willing to settle for pretty much anything because of how difficult dating has gotten lately. But that means women don't have much incentive to become better versions of themselves because why would they put in all of that effort to improve when there are hundreds of men desperate to take them out on dates? So I think overall, men need to raise their standards. However, if you overcorrect the other way, you have really high standards. That's also not good. So let's talk about the potential consequences of having really high standards for the women you date. The first thing I want to talk about is physical appearance. I think it's fair to say that both men and women care about physical appearance of their partner. Most women would prefer a man who's taller than them and relatively good looking. But women are much more willing to overlook appearance if the man is well off in other areas of his life. For example, if a man is not that tall and he's not that good looking, but he's rich, successful, and very charming, he would still be very appealing to most women. However, the same thing cannot be said the other way around. This is one of those areas where I have a lot of compassion for ugly women because your appearance is your ticket to dating. For those women who are genuinely ugly, they're genetically unfortunate. Unless they go the extreme route of getting surgery, which can be very expensive, there's really not much they can do to improve their appearance. Even with fashion and fitness, they can't really make a woman gorgeous without genetics. Do you know what I mean? So I really feel sorry for those women because if men don't find you attractive physically, they're not going to bother finding out anything else about you. It doesn't matter if you're funny, charming, smart, caring, considerate. It really doesn't matter. Most men are not going to pay attention to you unless they find you physically attractive first. It is sad, but it is true. Now, in some instances, men can get really fixated on finding the most beautiful woman possible, and unless they find that woman, they're not going to settle for a relationship. If you're one of those men, understand that women's looks fade, and they fade pretty quickly. I know that a woman at her peak can be absolutely stunning, but it's rare to be able to maintain that beauty forever. Sure, there are some women in their 30s, 40s, or even 50s who look fantastic, but those are the exceptions, not the norm. So if you're fixated on finding the absolute perfect physical specimen, you might want to rethink that. And even if you do find that particular woman, she's not going to look like that for long. On top of that, you have a mechanism in your brain that is hardwired for sexual novelty. It's called the Coolidge effect. I talk about this concept in my previous video about male promiscuity. But essentially, it doesn't matter how attractive she is, eventually your attraction towards her is going to fade. Personally, I think a better approach would be, instead of trying to find someone who looks perfect, try to find somebody who looks pretty enough. Somebody who has some appeal. When you see her, you still get excited. She doesn't have to be the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, but she is pretty enough to be in a relationship with. Then you can put more emphasis on her personality, which is what it takes to be a good partner. You know, for the past decade, we've been bombarded with unrealistic beauty standards, and it's not just women who suffer from it. Men are affected too. Seeing all of those photoshopped images from social media can really make you think that something is wrong with you because you can't attract a woman who looks like that. It's even worse now with the invention of AI. We're pushing beauty standards to a completely different level. Now, women on social media don't just look good, they look perfect. But again, this is completely unrealistic. Most women in real life cannot compete with these images on social media. So if you're letting these unrealistic standards sabotage your relationship, it's time to take a step back and see what's actually realistic. Now, some people talk about having really high standards in their relationship, but they're not just talking about physical appearance. They're talking about how their partner is supposed to make them feel. In this day and age, with all the technology that we have, it's so easy to get instant pleasure from our phones without actually doing any work. And when you're in the midst of all of this instant gratification, you're dissociating yourself from what it actually takes to build a genuine connection with someone. Right now, with a click of a button, you're able to simulate a connection. With a click of a button, you can play somebody's boyfriend for a week. You can play somebody's girlfriend for a month. And after a few months, when all of that passion starts to fade, you can just move on to the next person and do it all over again. When you're in this cycle of instant gratification, you're slowly removing yourself from what an actual relationship looks like. Because what it takes for a healthy relationship is much slower. It's the process of putting in work every single day. Taking care of yourself, improve your mental health, resolving your past trauma, understanding your partner. These are things that you're not going to enjoy doing, especially if you're so used to getting instant pleasure from your phone. So relationships have a hard time competing with this because healthy, functioning relationships require a lot of hard work. Okay, why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this is because by dissociating yourself from what actual relationships look like, you're also putting unrealistic expectations on how your partner is supposed to make you feel. Some people might start a relationship thinking that it's going to be easy because of how amazing the honeymoon phase is. They think that everything else should be easy. And when they encounter some difficulty, let's say when they first have a disagreement with a partner, they think something's wrong with their partner or something is wrong with the relationship. But that's not how it's meant to be. You need to relax a little bit and realize that relationships take work. Sometimes to move forward, you need to let go of your past. That means painful grieving, lashing out in anger, being triggered in past trauma. Those relationships you envy where you see genuine care for each other, that's the result of both people putting in a lot of effort. So if you have really strict standards for your partner and they basically need to be perfect, they cannot make any mistakes, just know that that's unrealistic. You gotta have some understanding and compassion for your partner when they're going through a hard time. Because in the future, what if the roles were to be reversed? You can't predict what's gonna happen. What if you're going through a hard time? Do you want your partner to just leave you? Or you want them to have some compassion and understand what you're going through? Because at the end of the day, if you have really high standards for the people you date, understand that you're also signing yourself up to be judged by those exact standards. Unless you're a hypocrite and hold your partner to a different set of criteria than yourself. You treat other people how you want to be treated, right? So that's why it's important to have realistic standards for the people you date, as well as how you're supposed to feel in the relationship. Next, I want to talk about how having really high standards can be an expression of low self-esteem. Let's say it's a man, for whatever reason, you're very insecure, and you want to improve your self-esteem. For this reason, you might look for a really amazing woman as a way of resolving all of your insecurity. You want a perfect woman out of desperation. You believe that she's going to be your salvation. You don't want to be this loser with low self-esteem. You want to be an amazing guy. And one way of proving that is if you are with an amazing woman. She is the evidence you need to prove your quality to yourself and the people around you. I'm sure we can all agree that this is a fucking disaster. You can't solve internal problems with external solutions. This dynamic is guaranteed to be codependent. You're not taking responsibility for your own self-esteem. You're putting your self-worth, your happiness onto her. This is not how self-esteem works. You build self-esteem through hard work, dedication, discipline, achievement. You understand your morals, your values, your character. You're happy with yourself. Once you become an amazing guy, you can then look for a woman to compliment you, to join you in celebration, not as your salvation. Here's another reason. Why do some men have really high standards for the women they date? Consider the possibility that they want to sabotage the relationship. Some people have extremely high standards, which could be a way for them to unconsciously avoid intimacy due to their emotional or psychological trauma that have not been resolved. They might be afraid of getting close to someone, and it can actually cause them to panic when they start to form a connection. So instead of confronting their own demons, they project those issues onto their partner, saying that they're not perfect or they're not good enough. This happens a lot more often than you think. People sabotage their relationships all the time because of their unresolved psychological issues. And most of the time, they don't realize that they're doing it. For example, let's say you're in a relationship with a good woman and everything goes smoothly, but you just have this urge to create some sort of chaos. Understand that subconsciously you're picking fights. You're trying to provoke shitty behavior, either from yourself or from your partner. And this usually stems from the fact that you're trying to avoid anything that requires effort. And it makes a lot of sense because it takes a lot of work to resolve your past trauma. But it's much easier to blame other people, saying they're not good enough as a way of avoiding working on yourself. Now, another thing that I want to mention here is that the idea of meeting a perfect woman in the dating market is almost unrealistic. If she is genuinely perfect, she is already taken. She is already in a relationship. Think about it. What kind of characteristics or personality does a woman have if she actually enjoys the single life? She enjoys casual sex. She enjoys going on dates after dates. She doesn't want a commitment. What kind of a person do you think she is? You know something is not right. Maybe she has commitment issues, or maybe she has a fear of intimacy. Maybe she needs constant novelty and excitement as a way of escaping her own insecurity. Or she doesn't have the maturity for a genuine connection. Maybe she has trust issues. Whatever it is, something is not right. The desire to just keep dating, having casual sex with men, and never want to commit a relationship, that's not normal. High quality women want to be in relationships. The values and beliefs of a high quality woman incentivize her to seek commitment. She values stability, loyalty, self-growth, emotional intimacy. She trusts her man's capacity to lead the relationship. She understands the dynamic between masculinity and femininity. She has more important things in her life other than dating and casual hookups. So you see, the idea that you're going to find a perfect woman in the dating market is unrealistic. The women you find are going to come with some sort of baggage. Or your best bet is to find a woman with good potential. She has similar values and beliefs. She has a good personality. She has enough potential that being in a relationship with you can bring out the best in her. Because most women are going to need a balancing force of masculinity in order to bring out their femininity. But this means that you have to relax your standards a little bit. She's a real person. That means she's not going to be perfect. She might have some flaws. She might have some insecurities that she needs to work through. And that's okay. As long as she knows what she needs to work on and she's improving, that's good. Stick with her. Because maybe you also have some issues that you need to work through and you guys can grow together. Don't let your idea of perfection destroys many opportunities that can potentially make you happy. Alright, the last thing I want to talk about is what you want versus what you're willing to pay for. Every time you add an additional criteria to your standard, your dating pool shrinks significantly. Every time you say the word "and," the woman that you want becomes less and less realistic. Imagine this is your dating pool, right? I want a woman who is pretty, and she is young, and she's not a slut, and she's emotionally stable, and she knows how to cook. Every time you say the word "and," your pool shrinks significantly. And when you get to this point, when your pool is so small, these women are very expensive. Not just in terms of money, but also in time, effort, sacrifice, investment, and all other resources. So now the question becomes, well, what are you willing to sacrifice to get one of these women? In other words, if you have a list of 10 things you want from your woman, are you also fulfilling her list of 10 things that she wants from you? If you want a 10, but you're not willing to pay for a 10, or you can't afford a 10, then you're just delusional. Do you know what I mean? What you want is one thing, what you're willing to pay for is another thing. Now, I don't want you to take this and overcorrect the other way either. Do not commit to shitty women. But understand that as much as picking the wrong woman could be the biggest mistake of your life, not picking the right woman can also be the biggest mistake of your life. So while it's important to have standards, you need to find the balance between what you want versus what's realistically attainable. And if you're so fixated on finding the perfect woman, if you can't tolerate anything less than perfect, then you might need to take a good look at yourself in the mirror. The problem might be you. If you like this video, I highly recommend you check out my previous video. I talk about male promiscuity. One of the things I talk about is what would happen if you have really low standards for the women you date. Until next time, stay curious.